Good afternoon, everyone. Come on in, come on in.
Is it already?
It is 4 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Charles Ross, and I am the President and CEO of the International Business Innovation Association. And it's my pleasure to kick off this afternoon panel session on soft landings programs, and also to be your moderator for the next 60 minutes or so. So I have to tell you, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous because in coming here and preparing, I ran into someone in the speaker ready room, and he came in and he told me, he said, 3 o'clock, can't wait to take a nap. And I told him, I said, hey, I got a panel at 4 o'clock, and we got to make sure people are up. And he said, no, 3 o'clock, 3 to 3:30 is just the amount of time to get a good nap. He said people will be up at 3:30 and ready for some invigorating Q&A for our 4 o'clock session. So I'm depending on you guys to bring it in terms of the session. You know, all of you guys know that every year there are thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, researchers, and innovators that are going after a huge $20 trillion market opportunity, which is called the U.S. market. And given the size of this market, but all of you in this room know that there are often many challenges associated with tapping into this opportunity. When these challenges go unaddressed, it definitely depresses global trade, it depresses productivity, innovation, and ultimately quality of life for communities across the globe. So for this afternoon, we are all fortunate because we have the occasion to hear from two experienced and accomplished practitioners from soft landings programs that are globally recognized here in the United States. And so we'll be talking about those programs, how they work with foreign actors that are looking to get access into U.S. markets, and some of the ins and outs of those particular programs. So that's what we're going to be covering this afternoon. In terms of a format, what I'd like to do is I would like to first kind of kick off this session by introducing our panelists. I want to introduce them by way of a question to help us cover the basics of soft landings, and then also give them an opportunity to share a little bit more about their program and their organization. And then for the majority of this session, and I wasn't kidding when I said I want you guys to help us with the content, we want to have the majority of the session focused on Q&A from you guys so that we know, so we can address the topics of interest. But I'm going to help you out a little bit, so I'll start off with a couple of moderated questions to kind of go beyond the basic, and then we will open it up for you guys. But before we do that, and just to help the panelists, I want to do just a quick survey of the audience, and I wanted to ask you guys a couple of questions so we kind of get a sense of just the overall knowledge around this particular topic. Okay, so by a show of hands, the first question I have for you guys, how many of you are familiar with the term soft landings? Okay, that's fantastic. How many of you have directly worked with a soft landings program, accessed their services, or partnered with a soft landings program? Okay, great. And then lastly, how many of you are foreign actors that are looking at either researchers, innovators, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs or business leaders looking to get access to the U.S. market?
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's start off with the basics. And I'm going to start off with, on the basics, trying to cover the who, what, but really try to cover the why. So I'm going to kick off the question with our first panelist, Lynn Henkel. Lynn is with the Georgia Institute of Technology, and this is a part of a special unit at Georgia Tech that is focused on technology-based economic development. And Lynn, I'd like for you to just kind of just kick us off by sharing a few details about your organization and about your program, but then also just kind of talk to us about some of the challenges that the clients that you work with in your program face when they're coming to access U.S. markets.
Okay. Thank you very much, Charles.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Henkel with Georgia Tech. Our program started out close to 8 years ago with working with companies who were interested in landing in the Atlanta region. And there really wasn't a program in place for that. So the organization I work for, which is called the Enterprise Innovation Institute, is it's the largest economic development institute in any university in the United States, strictly focused on economic development initiatives. So we have multiple programs, including the Minority Business Development Program. We have the Southeast Region Trade Adjustment Program. We have a Manufacturing Extension Program, all under the umbrella, as well as 2 incubators. But the incubators were actually getting calls from foreign companies who wanted to come and land in Atlanta. So we were tasked with going ahead and investigating this to see how we could help. Fast forward 7 years later, and we've been an InBIA certified location for about 4 years now, I think. Yeah, about 4 years. And we've actually organized our training programs into cohorts. So we do a spring and fall cohort for companies, and we specifically focus on small and medium enterprises. We feel that startups aren't quite ready to go international yet. They're still trying to get their feet on the ground in their home country. And then, of course, you have large corporations who can afford the consultants to do all the work for them. So as an educational institution, as Georgia Tech, we focus on educating our CEOs that come to us on whether or not, helping them make the decision of whether or not to expand into the U.S. market. So our program is very educationally based, and it's a 10-week program. And I'll go into that in a little while. But the question was issues that companies face. The biggest one, I would say, is understanding the labor laws. So we have a lot of experts that come into our program and speak with our companies. There's a whole laundry list of issues that need to be addressed, such as location. I mean, if you're developing a manufacturing company, you've got to find the space or facilities be able to handle a manufacturing process. Labor laws, like I said, are very, very important. How you can do business in the U.S., what are the tax implications, and most of all, I think finding the right talent. If you make the decision to come to the U.S. and expand into the U.S. market, are you going to be able to find the right resources and the right skills to be able to advance your company? Because you just don't want to put a footprint into the U.S. You really want to be able to make a stand and grow within the U.S. market.
Great. All right. So thanks, Lynn. And you mentioned a couple of the top challenges around access to talent and then understanding some of the regulations and laws associated with in the U.S. For companies they're entering. Next, I wanted to introduce Karina Sotnik. Karina is with Karina is with the University City Science Center. And this is an organization that is based in Philadelphia, and they've been in this space. I just found out before our session that they're one of the largest multi-university based research parks in the United States, and they've been supporting the Philadelphia ecosystem for over 50 plus years, I believe.
Yep.
So Karina, I was wondering if you could just talk to us a little bit more about the model of the University City Science Center, and then also tell us a little bit about just kind of generically, how do you define a soft landings program, and what are some of the key elements associated with those programs?
Sure. Thank you so much, Charles. And it was really interesting to hear you speak. I heard Lynn speaking about her program a year ago and was fascinated by how Georgia Tech does it. So as Charles said, Science Center, we can skip University City, Science Center.
Science Center.
Science Center is the oldest and the largest urban research park in the country. And if you go to Philadelphia, you hear a lot of oldest. We have the first university in the United States, the first hospital, the first zoo. Well, we also have the oldest and the largest urban research park. And this is an independent nonprofit organization that started from the beginning to work with 31 universities and research institutions in 3 states, in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So we work with universities very known, such as University of Pennsylvania, and Drexel, and Temple, but also with University of Delaware, and Rutgers, and New Jersey Institute of Technology. So our aim is really wide. And so about 12 years ago, we looked at our participating universities, and we said, why don't we help you commercialize your academic innovation? So we started to work with 21 universities and their tech transfer offices to help them commercialize their innovation, what's happening there in the laboratories at the universities. And so over the years, we developed multiple programs specifically for those universities to help them get innovation out of the labs and more into the marketplace. So we have something called proof of concept, where we work with very early researchers. And then we have something called phase 1 venture, where we actually incorporate companies. Why am I telling this to you? Because we leverage all of those connections that we've developed over the last 12 years. We leverage our database of mentors, advisors, service providers, investors, specialists. Now, in order to give the same service to the international companies through our Global Soft Landing program. The way our Global Soft Landing program works is we have 2 sub-programs. We have a program called Bootcamp. In my experience helping international companies, US companies going abroad, and international companies coming to US, a lot of times companies decide to go to new market very opportunistically. Usually you have a cousin who lives in Texas, you move to Texas, right? Or you met someone at the conference, you had a good conversation, you move to that place. There's very little science that usually companies put into in order to expand to other markets. And that's unfortunate because expanding to other markets is difficult. So we have one of the programs called Bootcamp that is aimed at anyone, startup or small or medium-sized companies, and we're teaching them all the tools how to do it. So it's a week-long program that covers anything from this is how you hire people, these are the labor laws. We have a whole day dedicated to just operations. This is how you file taxes. What if you happen to be in innovation zone and your taxes are deferred? Is it better to open Delaware LLC or C corporation? We cover all of those operational things in one day. Then we have a day dedicated to legal. Again, how to incorporate, what would be your immigration status, what is the IP status. So that's another day dedicated to that. And along the way, every day we have sessions with mentors and advisors that prepare companies to pitch. Even if the companies come to the United States and they said, we're not interested in funding, at the end of the day, they all look for funding in the United States. So we teach them how to prepare a pitch for US investors, because the US pitch is very different from, let's say, European or Latin American way people are used to fundraise. And at the end of the boot camp, they do pitch to the panel of investors. And some of them already have connections with mentors and advisors through that week to sort of understand what it takes budgetary and resource-wise to enter United States. So that's one program. And the second program is more for companies that already have traction where they are. So these are small and medium-sized companies that already selling in their own region and maybe some other region, and are ready to enter U.S. market. And this is more of a 6 to 12 month engagement with the companies where we welcome them to Philadelphia and we work as part of their business development team to open up all of the connections that we have through the university community, but also larger community to help them get this first milestone in the United States. So that's in a nutshell what we do. But one of the most difficult things I found the companies go through is, yes, understanding the laws is important, but in a lot of correspondence with investors, issues became, my company in Belgium invented this, and IP belongs to the company in Belgium. Now I created a company in the United States. Investors don't want to invest into United States company because it doesn't have IP, right? So issues like that, we address them through the bootcamp, but it also becomes a barrier, and how do you overcome that barrier is something that we can help.
Karina, thank you.
Sure.
So, so just for summary purposes, so a couple of things I've heard. So for Lynn's program, they are pretty much focused on small to medium-sized enterprises. And for Karina's program, they have a kind of an intake service that's broad across all kind of maturities. But their most intense work that they do is also with small to medium-sized enterprises. Wanted to share just a little bit about the organization that I'm with. So it's the, again, InBIA, International Business Innovation Association, and we support entrepreneurship centers, and we term entrepreneurship centers or define them as programmatic approaches that usually leverages some type of infrastructure. Typically, you may know of these organizations as incubators, accelerators, and co-working spaces. And then we help to connect them to people and resources for them to be successful. And ultimately, they are helping entrepreneurs in their local community. One of the ways in which we kind of play in the soft landing space is we provide or we enable a peer accredited designation for our members around soft landings. So in about the early 2000 timeframe, we started to see many of our members launch programs focused on enabling access to U.S. markets. And we pulled together this certification to help actors that are coming into the market to actually understand the competency of the entrepreneurship centers that they may be working with. And Karina, one of the questions I want to run past you, and then also Lynn, ask you to chime in. You guys are both from very dynamic entrepreneurial innovation ecosystems that have all of those different players that I talked about. And in addition to that, they may have someone at the state level that's helping foreign companies, someone at the city level, someone at the Chamber of Commerce, someone at the university, the community college. So the question I have is, for your particular programs, how do you kind of, if you can compare and contrast your programs with resources that other foreign actors may see in your ecosystem?
Thank you, Charles. Also, I think we're very collaborative by nature, and Philadelphia is also, and I have to say, I'm so glad that we here represent not San Francisco, not Boston, and not New York, but rather Atlanta and Philadelphia, which I think are easier markets to enter U.S. market, contrary to popular beliefs. So the way our ecosystem works, I always say that Science Center can help companies that fit under the umbrella of science and technology. So if you're working in any of those fields in fintech, edtech, biotech, digital health, even the science of food, we can usually help you. But if you're working in furniture manufacturing, this is more of SelectUSA or Chamber of Commerce or World Trade Organization. So we collaborate. They send us a lot of small and medium-sized companies. We usually bounce companies that we cannot help, but we know that they can help to them. So we are in no way competing. I feel like we are very much collaborating in that sense with all of the resources in Philadelphia. I don't know if that's your experience as well.
Ours is a little different in that we really focus on educating the CEOs on how to be competitive in the market, where we don't really specifically have a physical landing space for the CEOs. We're more focused on, we have a 10-week webinar series, and that's how we run the soft landings programs. Everyone does it differently. Every single solitary soft landings designation center has very different parameters they operate under. Our particular one is we're focused very much on education. So our responsibility is to educate the CEOs to the best of our ability to help them make a decision. So the decision to land has not been made when they first sign up with us. They're going through an education course to be able to help themselves determine whether or not landing in the U.S. and expanding into the U.S. market is the right move for their company. And then also, if you're making that decision, is Atlanta the right place for you? Of course, we're a little biased, and we're able to bring in a lot of experts from the state of Georgia to be able to encourage those companies once they've made that decision to expand into the U.S. market. We really focus on trying to handhold them and facilitate a relationship with organizations outside the university, because we're very focused on, as a university. It's not our job per se to help companies and incubate them. Our job is to educate people. So that's where we kind of do the separation. So we have wonderful organizations in Georgia and the Atlanta region, such as the Chamber of Commerce's and Georgia Department of Economic Development and other organizations that exist, that is their job, is to help these companies. But our job is to help these companies understand and make that decision. So it's a little different.
Great. Okay, you guys ready with your questions? Okay, so I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds to work on those questions. And I'm going to help give you some food for thought. So before we start those questions, one question I want to ask is, I'll start this with Lynn, around the fact that you're part of a state organization that's all about creating jobs in the state of Georgia. And I'm just wondering, when you share with some of your stakeholders, I'm working with a company from the Netherlands that's looking to come here to the U.S., kind of how does that play out, and what's kind of the strategic rationale or business case for a state-focused economic development group to work with foreign entrepreneurs and foreign businesses?
Well, luckily for us, our president had come up with a strategic plan for the next 25 years for the university. And I think it was number 3 on the list of his top 5 was to truly be an international university and to embrace international relationships. So that kind of gave us the go-ahead. At least I interpreted it that way. I can always pick up the piece of paper and show the people when they challenge that. But we are funded partially by the state of Georgia. We are funded to educate. Part of the state of Georgia is to do economic development initiatives. That's why I'm in the organization I'm in, it's economic development initiatives. What better way than to have companies from outside the U.S. come in and land in Georgia and then hire Georgia Tech students to do their work. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? So I've never really been challenged on it.
Great. Okay. Karina, anything on it?
Yeah, I have to say the same. We're also economic development organization, and Philadelphia is very international as a city. And in fact, really interesting fun fact, we have our incubator for local companies. More than half of the companies in our incubator started by people that were born outside of United States. So just in itself, the city is very international. And so for me to bring in companies from around the world to land in Philadelphia, to grow in Philadelphia, to collaborate in Philadelphia makes complete sense. And so I'm looking at these companies to hire local, to bring in foreign investors. We just had two really large exits in Philadelphia. Both of them were companies were bought by foreign companies. So Roche bought Spark Therapeutics for $5 billion. We're really proud, and they were located at the Science Center. And bioMérieux, a French company, just bought one of our Science Center companies, Invisible Sentinel. So we want to continue that trend and to bring foreign investors and foreign companies to Philly so that we can grow our ecosystem even more.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to start us off. So tell us who you are, your organization, where you're from.
Hi, my name is Antonio Martinez. I'm from the Spanish Trade Commission here in Washington, D.C. And I had a question for Karina. I wonder if those courses, which I found very interesting, are open to any kind of companies, and if you have something for that week, like digital or over the internet, that they can follow from Spain, for example, in our case, because I found that would be very, very useful.
Thank you for that question. So it's interesting that we do start to get demand to maybe start some of our bootcamp in the country over the web and cover some basics there. But I found through my experience that it's still absolutely invaluable when people come over to make those connections, right? The personal connections, every business is done on personal connection. So yes, we can start offering some things through the webinars, but with the understanding that eventually people will come and we can still help them on the ground. I don't know if you have similar
Well, we have
philosophy.
Ours is a 10-week webinar with 1 week immersion in Atlanta, so it's similar in that we work it all through up for 9 weeks, and then the 10th week is spent in Atlanta, meeting with everyone that we've worked with through the webinars and setting up mentorship, and we even do follow-up after the program to make sure that the companies are comfortable with what they went through.
So you use the mic. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
Hi, my name is Huri, and I'm actually with a company out of California. We do matchmaking, but also overlap of soft landing a little bit, just starting. But for myself, what I do is focus on the immigration part, and I know you mentioned immigration. So whether it's training or services, you outsource them out to the firms, the local firms, or how do you handle the immigration part of the process?
Yeah, we have our partners, our service providers that we work with. And so, yes, I do a lot of connections and matchmaking, but open to expand my network, definitely.
And Karina, let me ask you this question. In addition to like immigration, can you share the services that for a soft landing center you would most likely receive in the center? We talked about some of those. What are some of the other ones that you partner with, like incorporation?
So thank you for that question, actually. So a couple things. First of all, we're located in a building that is managed by a fabulous organization called the Cambridge Innovation Center, CIC. So CIC started in Massachusetts and Cambridge, but they're now all around the world, and they have absolutely beautiful space designed to help companies grow. You can start with one desk and grow to 70 people companies. And so CIC is now in Boston, Cambridge, Philadelphia, Miami, St. Louis, but also Rotterdam, soon Warsaw, Tokyo, Sydney. So in terms of space, we partner with CIC, but you can also, as a company, rent any space. We're really agnostic about that. We do work with a government organization called BARDA. BARDA stands for Bio-Advanced Research and Development Agency, part of Health and Human Services of our federal government. And BARDA partnered with the Science Center to be their eyes and ears to look for technologies that are specifically of interest to them. And they're looking to solve big health issues. So they're looking to solve sepsis, they're looking to solve influenza, they're looking for any kind of interesting sensors or wearables that can track patient data early. And what's interesting about it, this type of government funding is available to international companies. So they're looking at us not just to tap into our network of 30+ universities, but also to look for it internationally. So we sometimes match international companies with this US government grants.
Great.
Well, plus we also work with law firms and immigration firms and accounting firms and bookkeepers and everything that a company needs. We usually have a resource to connect them with.
Ours is a little similar in that we work with all the service subject matter experts, and they come in and do volunteer webinar activity. Once again, so like all the service providers. So it's the ones that we use with our Advanced Technology Development Center. It's ATDC. It's one of the oldest incubators in the United States. So we are very engaged with them. That incubator, though, is only for state of Georgia residents. So what we're trying to do is build kind of a continuum and a process. So once the company decides to move to the U.S., then we also have the ATDC incubator and all of those services to go along with what the company wants. So we're trying to do it in steps to make it's a little bit easier to handle, because you're still trying to run a business as well as do this investigation. So.
Okay, so we have a question in the back here, and I'm gonna add a little something to it. So not only do I want your company and where you're from, but I want to know, are you rooting for the Warriors or the Raptors? Or maybe this basketball?
Hi, my name is Megan Kelly. I am from Philadelphia. I know Karina already, so maybe I'm cheating by asking this question. I am not a basketball fan, so all I can say is we're still proud that the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. But did I say I'm from Select Greater Philadelphia, which is part of the Chamber of Commerce for the Greater Philadelphia region. So we help companies that are interested in inbound investment. But my question is for both of you. You mentioned that you work with international companies that are interested in using your services, but how do you build those relationships with international companies? How do foreign networks know that you exist? And are there things that people like me in this room who are in economic development can do to help spread that message or to help facilitate relationships in foreign markets?
Great question. Yeah, I'll take it first. Our program actually kind of grew organically in that a lot of our alumni were calling us up after they graduated from Georgia Tech and went back to their home country and started their businesses or ended up working in government offices. And they were very aware of our incubation and our technology advancement and research activities. And when they wanted to go ahead and expand into the US market, they called Georgia Tech alumni office and said, do you have anything like this? And they said, no, but hold on, let me have you talk to Lynn. And that's how it all got started, really was with the alumni pushing for that. As a result, word of mouth gets around. We work with the consulates. Atlanta has many, many consulates and embassies representation in the Atlanta region. We're very tied in with them. We're very close as a community. I don't know if you know much about the Southern culture in the United States, but the Southern culture is very neighborly, I guess is the way to describe it. Everybody knows everybody. It's a large city, but it's still kind of small town. And everybody is very collaborative in that, it's a win-win situation. So you can pick up the phone and call. I could pick up the phone and call just about anybody. And they will jump to whatever it is I ask. Because they know I don't abuse it. And they know I'm serious about what we do. And it's reciprocal.
So similar to Lynn, although I'm really jealous that she does have that alum network, because we work with our universities they usually guard their alums, with
Yeah, they do.
yeah, so it's hard to penetrate that network. So we work a lot with the city of Philadelphia that has a very robust international group. I work very closely with honorary consuls that live in Philadelphia. But I also have to say, we now rely on our big brother InBIA to promote us, and Reach Network started to promote us in Europe, and I'm hoping to reach beyond Europe to Latin America, to Asia, to Africa. I want to create a very diverse community of companies. One thing that came out of the bootcamp is that companies really like to form their own alum group because they bond over the bootcamp, and we have usually very international bootcamps. So that also will continue as they spread the word in their own countries. Yeah.
Great, and Karina, thanks for the commercial about InBIA. So there's two programs that I'll just make sure that you guys are aware of. So as Karina mentioned, many of you probably saw earlier this morning the pitches from entrepreneurs that were being facilitated by the Enrich in the USA program. So this is a program that the InBIA is the US coordinating node, and this is a network of 9 consortium partners focused on connecting European researchers and entrepreneurs into US markets. And so we're a couple of years into this project. It's funded by or supported by the European Commission. And we see this as just a great way to not only designate the centers that are doing a great job in this area, but then also helping them with finding market opportunities for their program. The other thing I'll mention is a program called IDEA. And this is a program that we're implementing in partnership with the Department of State that's focused on the Western Hemisphere of Central America, Latin America. And this is somewhat similar to the Enrich program, but it's specifically focused on, over the next several months, of 10 cohorts of 10 entrepreneurs that will be connected to landing hubs similar to Georgia Tech and Science Center. So we think that those are excellent programs. Okay, so I know there's a question. Yes. How are you?
Hi, good. My name is Bridget Gibbons. I'm the Director of Economic Development for Westchester County, and I went to the NBIA conference
familiar face.
a couple of months ago. It was outstanding, so I highly recommend it to anybody who's in the incubator space. I was going to ask a similar question about where you get your leads from, but do you offer financial incentives to the companies that participate? Moving them over, funding them, giving them places to work. Is there a financial component to the programs that you offer?
So our program does not invest into companies and does not take any equity. We do charge a modest fee, actually, of participation. However, we introduce companies to a lot of funding sources, from government funding sources to local investors.
And I would have to say the same thing for our program as well. We have found that some countries, actually, their ministries, in some cases, sponsor some of the companies to come over. So we recommend when companies apply, and as a matter of fact, our application process for the fall, August 23rd is our cutoff date for applications for the fall cohort. So if you're considering it, get with me after the program, and I can tell you a little bit more about the details on that. But one of the first things we do is we suggest that the company go and work with their government agency, because a lot of times there is funding for the home government agency to help out, certainly not.
So you mentioned government funding. Is it state, federal, local?
So we introduce companies to, like BARDA, for example, which is the federal government sources, and we can talk to them about SBIR grants, what's available for companies here. But but we ourselves do not invest into them.
Understood. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so tell me about, so this program is branded Smart Soft Landings. But there's a corollary to that, which is called Smart Takeoff, I think.
Yes.
I think I've heard that.
Yes.
Or I'm branding that right now.
Yeah.
But can you guys talk about, just from your experience, what clients can do in advance of contacting you, maybe what they can do in their home country to just make themselves best, to allow them to best utilize the services that you'll provide through soft landings?
Oh, that's a good
So
question.
Lynn, will you start us off on that one?
Great. That's a really good question. I think for us, we try to work with the companies up front once they apply and once they're accepted into the program. We try to help understand where they are in their relationship with their home country and what their market is in their home country. And then we apply, through our program, we do a lot of I-Corps-like training. Has anyone heard of I-Corps before? I-Corps? Okay. So it's a National Science Foundation program to help entrepreneurs advance their technologies and research into a commercial product or service. So we kind of, our program is based loosely on some of those beliefs and systems and tools that we work with. So there's not a whole lot that the company can do up front, because once again, our program is very education based. We're really focused on educating the CEO. And it has to be a CEO or a decision maker for the company to be able to participate in this program. Because ultimately the CEO is going to be making that decision. So ours is very much focused on the education part of it. So there's really not a lot of lead activity to get into the program.
Okay.
So I want to echo what Lynn said, but ours is slightly different. We're very practical in our approach, but I think it's really important that companies already have that product market fit in where they are. Because where they are, I mean, it's not easy for any companies to succeed, right? But at least you know your market where you are and you're fully supported there. So to have market traction in your country and maybe in neighboring countries first, before you look at the big and wonderful but yet difficult US market, is really important. We tried to help one foreign company, for example, come to United States and then figure out that product market fit, and it's really difficult. So that's one thing that I would recommend you do. And another thing, do your homework before coming to United States. Through our fellowship program, which is the 6 to 12 month engagement, what we usually do at the beginning, we sit down with the company to outline what is the next milestone that they want to achieve in the next 6 months. And it really helps if they come in with the homework done, saying, you need to introduce me to this company, this researcher, this people. If they already know what they need, then I have my marching orders and I go and I do it. But if you come in looking at us to help you grow without understanding that, that becomes difficult and just takes longer.
Great. Okay.
Hi, my name's Therese Thill. I'm with the Regional Economic Development Group out of West Michigan in Grand Rapids specifically. Ladies, I'm curious, what is the source of funding for your programs? Lynn, you mentioned you get some dollars from the state. What other funding streams do you utilize?
So very little from the state. The funding for the program is actually from the companies paying for the program. So I have a little bit of pocket change, petty cash that I use for marketing and supplies, but we're basically a cost recovery situation because we're a public university. So it's a cost recovery situation, so the companies pay a fee.
So for us, it's a combination. First of all, it's the funding that we got from agency like BARDA that partnered with us to look for technologies for them. We also find that corporations are now coming to us asking to look for specific technologies for them worldwide, and they will fund some of it. But that's also our local resource because we also have a real estate arm and companies that come to our programs. Yep.
Great. Other questions? Okay, so what I'd like to do, yes?
Is this still on?
Is it Lance? Is it Lance?
It's Lance.
Yes, Lance.
The trade show guy. So I'm Lance Scott. My company is Alliance Technologies, and I guess in a way I'm in the soft landing business. I've never really used the term, but I specialize in bringing advanced manufacturing companies, international companies, either bring them here to the U.S. or guide them if they already have a footprint. So I'm thrilled to hear this because I started the business because there really wasn't this infrastructure, and I think the international colleagues that are here are left to navigate this. You know, you're regionally based, or maybe even municipality based, or university based, but each state has different programs. The country has different programs. So to get to a question, and Raptors, by the way. So just a question for everybody is I've heard the term small and medium size. If you could define that both on the parent side and on the company here, if you have a rough definition by head count or by dollar amount. And then second, I think, Karina, I heard that you do have a difference in programs depending on the status of the company. But I am curious because I've found I have 5 different programs that I put companies through, but even that, it's only a framework. Everyone's really unique and customized. So if you could maybe address some of that. Thank you.
Great.
So I feel that Bootcamp is a program that would be valuable to any size companies, very young startup just thinking how to expand globally, or company that's already at a couple million in revenue, because the steps that they need to take are very similar in terms of legal, operational. They need to understand all of that, right? So that's why Bootcamp is open to anyone. It's educational. My fellowship program, which is very practical at getting them successful in the United States, is aiming at the companies that are already at least $500,000 where they are, or very well funded. If it's a life science company, they might not be at revenue, but at least someone already believes in what they're doing, right? What I don't want to do is do the market traction from nothing.
Ours is similar. Our baseline definition is $1 million in revenue in the home country, and we prefer companies who have been established for at least 3 years. That way they have some knowledge of the business operations, once again, in the home country. No, in the home country, 3 years in the home country. So they do have a pretty steady, stable footprint in their home country, and they're looking to expand, because we're really focusing on expansion. Not disturbing what's going on in the home country, but really expanding into the U.S. market.
So I think we have time for one last question. Karina and Lynn, will you guys be around later here after this session?
Absolutely.
Just to answer any additional questions. So I'm going to throw this last question out to the panel, and hopefully you guys will find value in this question. So I was wondering if you could share for us, what does success look like for your program? So if you can kind of share with us, how do you guys kind of measure success? And if you have any kind of maybe short success story of a client that's come through your program.
Go ahead.
So my global soft landing program is fairly new, but we are not new to being a designated global soft landing site. In the past, we had less formal program, but we more of gave companies a space to work or a lab to work, and gave some services, but not a formal program that we have right now. But even through that, we had companies that successfully entered U.S. market. We had a French company, Kiosis, that entered U.S. market with one person in an office, and then were acquired 5 years later. We have a fairly large company from UK called Adaptimmune that entered through the Science Center, and as well established company in our region. But for me, through my now formal program, I think my KPI, as I said, would be jobs created, follow-up funding, and eventually an acquisition.
Great.
Okay, so we participated in the first La IDEA program several years back, and two of the companies, and I'm trying to think of what country they were from, and I can't remember, but I want to say it was either Chile and Costa Rica, I think it was. They both ended up expanding into the U.S. market out of that program. This last cohort, we had 4 companies. Who actually, 2 of them made connections, so they ended up getting business partners. So they didn't really have to do the major capital investment in the company, and instead were able to actually collaborate with competition. What's it called? Coopertition, I think is the fancy word for that. So 2 of the companies ended up going that route, and 2 of the other companies actually are setting up offices in Georgia. One in Atlanta and one outside because they needed the manufacturing facilities, and they're into biotechnology related to poultry. So that's on the outskirts of Atlanta. If you know anything about Atlanta, we're a big metropolitan downtown, but then you go a half an hour outside of Atlanta and it's very rural and agricultural. So we're the largest poultry producer in the United States. So this ended up being a really good situation for this biotechnology company that was focusing on poultry nutrition. The second part of that was...
How do you define success?
Some success stories.
I think if the companies walk away feeling like they've learned something, even if they don't, the pressure isn't on to land. The pressure is to understand your business and what you need to do to be successful. So we have yet to have anybody kind of walk away going, that was a waste. But they made an educated decision to go or no go, or hold off for a while, or get some other things lined up before they take that big giant leap. And to me, that's a success as well, because they could have run up a lot of investment money that they would have sunk. So I think it's all successful. Once again, we're focused more on education. So it's a very different program than a lot of other programs.
Great. All right. Well, if you guys can help me thank our panelists for this session.
Thank you.
And please come up and ask any questions.
Commercial?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Commercial.
So our next cohort, our fall cohort, is kicking off September 10th. And so the applications have to be in by August 23rd, if anyone's considering signing up for it. Come see me afterwards and we'll talk about it.
And Karina, you have a program.
Ours is October 7th for the next bootcamp, and it's a week-long bootcamp for biotech companies. But if you're in a different sector, again, come and talk to me, because we will be offering it to other sectors as well. Sorry.
Great. Thank you guys for your time.